Our guest speaker today is Derli Romero, artist from Mexico, from Morelia. El título de la presentación es Humanizando al Migrante en Rostros Migrantes de Derli Romero. And I'm going to be, he'll speak a little bit and then pause, and then I will be translating. There were so many sponsors for this, we couldn't even fit them all on the poster. So there ended up being 15 sponsors. Here's a few examples of some migration routes. The one that he saw most was this one. And the places, no sé si podría señalarnos en el mapa, Celaya, los lugares donde hiciste las entrevistas. So the places that he was interviewing people were Tijuana, up here, wait, sorry. Tijuana, Mexicali, Celaya, which was down here, Veracruz. So these were the areas. So he was mainly up in the north and then down here more toward the south were the areas where he was interviewing people. This is a photograph that Derli took, but it's not his project, but we're going to talk a little bit for a couple of seconds about Playas de Tijuana later, but he took that photograph and that's why we included it on the poster. So you already saw the video, so you know a little bit about this project, but Derli nos va a hablar un poco sobre los otros proyectos leading up to this. So
thank you for coming. First of all, I want to say thank to Kim and Miguel Lopez and all the sponsors to help us to do all these movements. And well, if you don't mind, I can speak in Spanish too.
Sí, háblanos del taller, el taller.
Okay. Okay. Todos los proyectos tienen antecedentes. En este caso de Rostros Migrantes, fue una tutoría que tuvimos en la ciudad de Celaya, de Salamanca, en el estado de Guanajuato. Y ahí nos reunimos varios artistas y artesanos para hacer proyectos relacionados con la migración. Fue cuando empezamos a maquinar ideas y desarrollar poco a poco este proyecto.
So it started with this artist workshop where they were all doing different projects. ¿Y los otros estaban haciendo proyectos de migración?
También, sí, todos.
So all of them were doing migration projects, and these are a few examples of his works. And on this one, the texture in the background is a petate, so it's a mat that people would sleep on in the floor, and so it has a lot of texture.
Y bueno, en el petate hice un molde con silicón y lo dejé secar, y después de eso la pulpa de papel la empujé así, como que la fui presionando para que tomara la forma de la textura del petate, y posteriormente pues hice los recortes de las figuras. Entonces toda esta exposición de todos los compañeros se exhibió en el Festival Cervantino en la ciudad de Guanajuato. Y bueno, en las siguientes imágenes van a ver el resultado de estos proyectos.
¿En Guanajuato y dónde?
En el Museo Diego Rivera en la ciudad de Guanajuato.
So this workshop was in Guanajuato, Mexico, and all of the other artist participants were also working on migration projects. And so these were the projects that Derli did, and this is the one that has the impression of the petate. So he cut out the picture. Esto parece láser, pero ¿lo cortaste con tijera o con qué?
No, también fue con molde.
So he was explaining his process with molds and how he got the texture on there, but you might have to ask him. We'll get his email will be at the end to try to explain better how he got that texture on there. One of the things about this image, I added this, was because this reminds me a lot of it because of the movement. The first image that he showed was very static, but this movement, the movement in these figures is such kind of terror that you can see, and it's such a contrast to this, which is what it was modeled on. So this is orderly people crossing the street, a parent and a child, but this is pure terror of the way that their bodies here are erect, and here they're leaning forward in just absolute terror. So this was the texture of the petate that he was talking about.
Sí, todo es un proceso de papel hecho a mano con pigmentos para producir la obra, ¿no?
So handmade with pigments. And this was a product on a museum wall with the textured, and it also has footprints. That's what you said.
Sí, todo lo relacionado con la migración, o sea, las flechas que dirigen, que van hacia un lado, hacia el otro, las huellas de los zapatos, algunos personajes ahí también caminando, usualmente con mochila, como en el caso de la parte superior izquierda, otros la mitad del cuerpo, pero todos así como en movimiento, ¿no? Que hayan.
So this piece has a lot of movement in it, and you can see the backpacks that people are carrying backpacks. When you look at the silhouettes, you'll also see that most of them have baseball caps to protect them from the sun. So here it is in a museum in Guanajuato, right? And this was another project.
Otro ejemplo de mi obra. En este caso fueron mi perfil, y ya utilizando el recorte y en internet pues busqué algunas palabras relacionadas con la migración, como éxodos, población, país, dirección, movimiento, territorio, todo ese tipo de palabras claves que me fueron llevando poco a poco a este proyecto.
So these were, again, the projects that were leading up to the project that we're talking about today, the Rostros Migrantes. And here he used his own profile, his own silhouette, and he printed text on it, and the text has to do with migration. So this is kind of, you can see how do we get from this to this, where we have the profiles of the people he interviewed and their stories printed on it. So this was kind of his thought process leading up to it in this workshop in Guanajuato with other artists who were also working on migration.
Ese es otro ejemplo, ese es un corte con láser en un petate. Y también trabajando un poco la reflexión de la migración, ¿no? De la familia, de la madre y el hijo caminando por algún lugar, ¿no?
So here we have a mother and child in movement. So, and we have a lot of texture also in this piece. This, I did not see this photo until after I came up with the idea of hanging them on clotheslines, but this was not an exhibit. This was just them drying. That's just drying in his house. So, so this was not an exhibit presentation. This was just hanging them up to dry. Also, some of the earlier ones were pictures, not text.
Sí, cuando uno está trabajando en un proyecto, pues acuden a la mente otras ideas distintas, ¿no? En este caso, también en el in situ, tuve la oportunidad de dibujar a los migrantes. Llevé unas placas de aluminio y con un lápiz graso empecé a dibujar, pensando en mi casa llegar a imprimir esos dibujos, ¿no? Entonces son sketches de los migrantes también, que utilicé los mismos perfiles de ellos para poner elementos gráficos en la obra, ¿no?
So here we see the development of the project because he has the silhouettes of the migrants and drawings of the migrants that he did in situ when he was, you know, on site, when he was interviewing them, and he had aluminum and a grease pen, porque eso es lo que se usa para lithography. So because those are the tools of lithography, he carried with him aluminum and a grease pen to make the lithographs. I just want to show them this because Derli brought me this. This he made for me, but this you just drew on here. So this was, he brought this as a present to me. And actually it looks a lot. So this is so when did you do this pencil drawing? It's this guy here. When when did you do this pencil drawing? After you did the lithograph or?
I did in situ,
Okay.
in the same place with the migrants.
So, okay. So you actually drew this when you were interviewing this migrant,
Sí, sí, sí.
and then you gave this as a gift to me. So thank you very much, Derli. ¿Algo más que quieres decir sobre estos?
Bueno, reuní estas obras y las expuse en una bienal de Centro Occidente en la ciudad de Salamanca, Guanajuato. Fueron y quedaron como parte de una exposición colectiva.
So these, from this Guanajuato collective that was doing this workshop together, they did a collective exhibit at the museum in Salamanca, Guanajuato. And so these estaban pegados con alfileres aquí.
Puse un poquito de goma.
So these actually, he like glued them on there, pero luego se podían quitar.
Sí, porque la fibra se despega. Tantito, no pasa nada.
So one of the things that I realized about Derli is he would rather see this project hung by a bunch of students with their bare hands than sitting in an archive. So this was kind of where our collaboration came together, was that I met him in Irvine last April at a conference. And he told me that one of the boxes was already, that there were only 10 boxes and that one of them was at Stanford Library. And so, but it wasn't being exhibited. And so he offered to send me one of the boxes. There's only 10 boxes in existence. He sent me one of the boxes. And I realized it was important to get it exhibited because he would rather, even if there's some damage to them because of being hung on clothespins, he would rather see that than have them sitting in a box in an archive and nobody seeing them.
Sí, es como una instalación. Para mí me gusta mucho ese contacto con las personas, que se exhiba también el trabajo de diferentes maneras, en diferentes espacios. Es muy importante también para pues no sé, hacer conciencia de todos estos problemas a mayor número de gente, ¿no?
Sí, entonces es importante exhibirlas porque, so it's important to get them exhibited because if they're just sitting in a box in a library or a museum, there's a consciousness raising. The purpose of this is, well, ¿conoces la palabra artivist? Entonces, ¿tú te consideras artista o?
Not precisely.
There is an expression artivist, which is an activist and an artist, but this is consciousness raising art. And so it's not meant to be just sitting there. It's meant to be touched and felt and yeah. Estos solo se están secando en el piso? Okay. So these were just drying on the floor. These are exhibited on a wall, so we see drawings and silhouettes with drawings. And at this exhibit, they were also playing the recording of the video. Right.
Sí, esta es una exposición, es la primera exposición de este proyecto en la Universidad Michoacana. Y ahí pues exhibieron tanto los rostros migrantes como algunas litografías que hice en los dibujos.
So on the wall there, on this right side on the wall, we see lithographs just on rectangular paper. And then here we see the silhouettes, and then here they're playing the video. And so this exhibit was at the Museo Michoacana from Michoacan, which Derli is from, or lives in Morelia, Michoacan. So this is his home base. And this was individually of this project, Rostros Migrantes. So we saw that the projects leading up to that, and then now this project. So this was the first exhibition of this project. ¿Y dónde más se ha exhibido entre aquí y aquí?
Y como ven, la distribución de los rostros migrantes es muy distinta a la que está aquí, ¿no? Entonces forma parte como de una instalación, ¿no? En cada lugar, dependiendo del espacio, pues se puede organizar y poner de distinta forma, ¿no?
So each exhibition is going to be different, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how we came up with this idea. So this was in Michoacán. Y entre Michoacán y ahora, ¿cuántas otras exhibiciones?
No solamente allá
Sí.
y aquí.
So this is the second, we're now witnessing the second exhibition So the first one, because the project was begun in 2018 and completed in 2019, and then there was the pandemic. So we are now witnessing the second exhibition of this, but we're hoping that there are going to be many more. So this was from that exhibition. And these were some other things leading up to other, well, this was some of the sketches, right?
Sí. Como vieron en la primera imagen, el portafolio de este proyecto. Que dije, también estaba imprimiendo yo en papeles esos dibujos, y dije, bueno, pues vamos a hacer otro proyecto también de dibujos solamente. Entonces le pedí a un escritor en San Francisco que le hiciera la introducción. Se llama Eve Rodríguez, y él hizo la introducción y lo acompañan 20 dibujos, 20 litografías en cada carpeta. De este solamente hice 3 porque no tenía pensado hacer nada, ¿no? Pues no, voy a hacer algo.
So there are only 3 of these in existence, and this is the portfolio of 20 drawings, and this is the cover of the portfolio of 20 drawings, but there are only 3 copies of that in existence. These are the 20 drawings.
Uno está en Stanford, otro está con el escritor, el poeta, y otro conmigo.
So one of these is at Stanford University, one of these portfolios. One is with the artist Derli Romero, and the other is with the poet who wrote the introduction.
Se llama Bosquejos del Otro Lado.
Bosquejos del Otro Lado, Sketches from the Other Side, is the title of this collection of 20 images. This one, you see the backpack here. This is a familiar face. This one also is in the video. I recognize the ones that are from the video. And another backpack. And so this is just the recap of the video. So these are things that come from the video. So this is Derli with a couple of the people that he spoke with. This was in the video where we saw the train. One of the questions I had was how many, this was part of the subtitles, you say it says dividing him in 2 pieces. That was about a train accident. That was one of the recordings. And one of the questions I had for him too was also how many women he had interviewed. And it seems like it was just these 2 out of the 100, 98 of them were men, and dos mujeres, y yo vi que uno tenía 15 años. ¿Cuántos eran jóvenes como adolescentes?
Oh, había muchos adolescentes. La mayoría entre adolescentes y, digamos, 30 años. En su mayoría. Hay una minoría de mujeres y hay una minoría de familias también, mucho menos, ¿no?
So at an earlier time, we might have seen more men and families coming together before the border security was amped up in recent decades. But he saw mostly men, mostly young men, teenagers and up to 30s. And he only spoke to 2 women who did talk about things like rape and being, one of them was pregnant and one of them was traveling with a child. Ella estaba embarazada. So the one who's not with the child was pregnant, and both of them talked about the dangers of rape and things on the journey. So most of the Rostros Migrantes of this project of the silhouettes only have text. A few of them had drawings and text, and those were the ones I chose that I thought were so interesting. They talk about the violence of having to pay the gang members and being extorted by the police and riding on top of the trains. This one talks about their foot getting chewed off by the train. This one for me was one of the most striking ones because it refers to the people who get machucados by the train as carne molida. So ground beef, ground meat are the people who get injured by the train. One of the things that I actually found so interesting about this particular one was the expression carne molida, but also the fact that this guy is actually giving advice. So this is very short. It's just like one long sentence. But in addition to talking about his experience, he's also talking about, he's giving advice to other people. You've got to get good rope. You've got to tie yourself on well. And I found another one that also was talking about how you get the, if you're thirsty, how you can get the water out of the cactus, out of the nopales. So he's giving advice to people. And I think this is interesting, particularly because Alejandra is going to take one of these boxes to Guatemala and for exhibition, hopefully in Central America. And people who, hopefully some of the people who see it are people who are trying to make that decision of whether to attempt something like this or not. And so having this, having this realistic perspective can help them to make choices. So there've been films about border crossing, young people riding on top of trains, La Jaula de Oro. In La Jaula de Oro, the one in the middle is a girl who dresses as a boy, and still, this not a happy ending, spoiler alert, she still gets taken by human traffickers. ¿No has visto todavía o sí lo viste? Okay, todavía no. Yeah. So we've been corresponding about films. Sonia Nazario's Enrique's Journey, she's a LA Times journalist. I think she's actually originally from Argentina, I think. She's from Latin America, and she followed a Honduran boy, and she rode on top of the trains with the migrants. And so she actually experienced this for herself. In the Rostros Migrantes hablan también de los albergues y las experiencias buenas y malas, de gente que les echa una mano y gente que les...
Sí, ellos tienen todo tipo de experiencias, inclusive llegan por ejemplo, en la ciudad de Celaya llega un camión, como camioneta, y trae comida, y ciertos días de la semana ellos comen ahí, hacen fila y obtienen algo de comida y hablan para seguir el camino.
En Celaya, one of the things that was really interesting in Sonia Nazario's Enrique's Journey was in Las Patronas, Veracruz. La gente les tira comida y agua. So people for 24 hours before the train comes, they'll be making little water bags, putting water in bags because bags are cheaper and also more ecological than bottles. And so they'll be filling bags with clean water and tying a knot on the bag and making food and throwing it on top of the trains. So some of the good experiences. So in this process, in the video, one of the things that it doesn't say, which I think was the #1 most interesting thing, there were two things when I met Derli a year ago in Irvine. The two things that really stuck out in my mind were his theory that the identity of the person is found in their profile. That was one thing. ¿Quieres decir algo sobre esto?
Sí, yo lo comparo con las huellas digitales, ¿no? Digitales, ¿no? Son distintas en cada uno de nosotros, y bueno, también pienso que los perfiles de cada uno de nosotros es único y distinto y nos distingue de cada otro.
Como copos en nieve, ¿no?
Ajá, sí.
So each person is individual, like a snowflake, and since their fingerprints are what is used to identify them by the police and things like that. That came up in the REM class panel. But he says every profile is unique, just like the fingerprints are unique. But the second thing that I thought was so interesting about this was that he made this paper fiber from the used clothing of the migrants, and that did not come out in the video. So the video skipped over that part of the process. So I wanted to ask him about that because for me, that was the most interesting thing. Entonces, the clothing he did explain to me had to be 100% cotton. So if it was polyester, he threw it away. But what he did was he exchanged their used clothing for new clothing, and then, ¿cómo se hace el papel de ropa de algodón? ¿Se hierve?
Bueno, sí, primero se lava la ropa, después posteriormente con una navaja o unas tijeras se corta en pedazos más pequeños para ayudarle a la máquina de hacer papel, la molida de la pulpa. Este es un proceso muy antiguo y bueno, en la universidad, en la ciudad de Morelia, tenemos una máquina, una polymer reader, y ahí hacemos la pulpa hasta que queden las fibras todas sueltas. Posteriormente se mete en una tina con agua, en la pulpa, y se le da una movida y se mete el bastidor con el stencil ya recortado del perfil. Y ya posteriormente se saca la figura, ya no se tiene que utilizar una tijera, una navaja.
Porque es molde.
Un molde. No sé si tenemos una
Yeah, sí, vamos a so he would wash the clothing. This is not a picture of the actual clothing, but he would wash the clothing. He would separate cotton from polyester, only the cotton clothes. He would wash them, and then he would cut them up into little pieces, and then make the paper using this machine that they have to make the cotton pulp. And then after he had the cotton pulp, then he used these stencils, these molds, and he dipped them into the cotton pulp and made the silhouettes. Y era un equipo porque eran otras personas que ayudaban, ¿no?
Sí, eso fue un trabajo muy grande de alrededor de un año trabajando duro y haciendo el papel, cortando las fibras, otros en la máquina, otros imprimiendo, o sea, yo también colaborando. No puedo llevar a cabo tantas cosas porque pues, se pierden en la organización, ¿no? Pero sí, teniendo un control de todo lo que iba sucediendo.
So as you saw in the video, this is the lithographic process, but it was a team effort. So there were a lot of people working on this project together to make this happen. So, and the majority of them are students. And this was the final product. The box, so he made the cardboard boxes, printed this on them, and the cardboard box, then the idea is to get this exhibited and not just sitting in an archive. And so that's kind of what we're talking about today is we can compare it to some other projects like Las Playas de Tijuana. Derli took this photo, but this is not his project. But Sonia in Wyoming was telling me that these have a QR code, so you can go up to the portrait, and with the QR code, you can listen to the audio. And we were also trying today to have an audio component where we could be listening to their voices at the same time as seeing these silhouettes with the stories printed on them. So another project in the Colombian artist or artivist, Doris Salcedo, has this project with shoes of disappeared people in Colombia. When I first heard about that project, I thought it was about migrants, but it is people in Colombia. And then we're also trying to, Carla in the Maxwell Museum told us about Jason de Leon and his undocumented project. And we're trying to see if we can get Derli Romero's Rostros Migrantes and Jason de Leon's undocumented project exhibited together here, possibly at Maxwell Museum in October. So he's planning to come back in mid-October. So Jason de Leon's project has toe tags, which is cuando les ponen en el dedo del pie cuando se muere una persona. So the toe tags that they put on actual migrants, these are actual toe tags. And here they are exhibited as a map. So you can see where these toe tags, so you see them, you know, how piled up they are along the border. So we're hoping to get in contact with Jason de Leon and talk about that. And I think Francis Hayashida was in contact with him. So this is how it was exhibited before, but when I was thinking about how we would exhibit it here, and I was thinking about how they were made from clothing, I thought, why don't we hang them like clothing? And at that time, I didn't realize, I hadn't seen this image, but when Derli came, he brought this image of them drying. And so this was our plan for today and how we were planning to exhibit them today. And we were able to do that successfully. So the Stanford Library has one of the 10 boxes. There are only 10 boxes of 100. So there's 1,000 silhouettes, 10 copies of each of the 100, and one box is at Stanford Library. In just last week, we were at the Rocky Mountain REM class, which is the Rocky Mountain Lhasa, and we did this panel with our student Himanshi, who is here today, and here's Himanshi and us. So in October, Fatima, our panel was accepted. So just before this, and Sonia from Wyoming, who was our student, we're going to give a panel at the Rocky Mountain MLA in the Rocky Mountain MLA in October, and Derli will be coming back with that, and we're hoping to do an exhibit possibly at Maxwell Museum and also possibly at the Center for Southwest Research. So another box he brought with him, and he came to save us money. He came on a bus. He took a bus from Morelia to Mexico City, and then flew to Tijuana, and then his daughter has been driving him around, and so he actually brought 2 more boxes with him. So one of them is so this one that's hanging is going to Guatemala with Alejandra Colom. One is going to Library of Congress with Suzanne Shadle, who is also our student. And after she got her PhD here in Brazil, she was at the library here in Zimmerman as our director of the Latin American collection, and now she's the director of the Latin American collection at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. So UNM students are going places. Alejandra Colom is going to take this box that's hanging, and this is, when I looked this up, it said the woman to watch. So she is the woman to watch, and she comes frequently to Albuquerque because her sister lives here and is a doctor and just had a baby. So another place we were looking at and having appointments with was at the National Hispanic Cultural Center, with ideas of the possibility of exhibiting there. This is Derli in that Torre Isl. Yeah, okay. Maxwell Museum. One of the sponsors of this event is the Alfonso Ortiz Center for Intercultural Studies, and the grant is for an ongoing collaboration between myself and Derli Romero, and this is Carla, who let us into the Maxwell Museum on Monday, even though it was closed. And and then we met with Margie Montañez from the Center for Southwest Research. And Margie, I'd like you to come up here and get this box. So Margie is taking this box that we're donating to the Southwest Research Special Collection. There, Lisa, look at us. Okay. And so he brought these boxes.
Available.
What?
Students.
Yeah, and I'll show them the room. Actually, I have a picture of the room. So he brought these all on the bus and everything. This is Margie, and this room is the Anderson Reading Room, is where you can go and study these. So these are going to be in the Center for Southwest Research and Special Collections in the newly being inaugurated Derli Romero Archive. Maybe we could do an inauguration in October. And this is the room where students can go to study these. So you can touch them, but they have like gloves and things there. And they also, you can only enter that room with a pencil and a computer. You cannot take a pen inside that room, and there's lockers outside of it. So this is Derli in front of the Center for Southwest Research and Special Collections, in front of the Latin American Librarian Institute. Marlene took that He also has meetings at New Mexico State in Las Cruces later this week. Tomorrow, he is going to El Paso to meet with the people at the Center for Inter-American and Border Studies. And this is today. ¿Hay algo más que quieres decir? O vamos a tener preguntas, mejor, ¿no? Okay, entonces vamos a las preguntas. These are the people we'd like to thank. All of the people who helped make this happen, and the students and staff who made this happen. Cameron is the one who designed the poster, the flyer, and this is Derli's email address. Why don't you, ¿por qué no te sientas más cerca si tienen preguntas? If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We will be sending the PowerPoint slides and the, we're recording this. The PowerPoint will be available. I can send it as a PDF, so it's easier then I can email it as a PDF, and the recording is going to actually be edited. Hay preguntas aquí en el salón. So let's go ahead and have this question here, and I'll repeat it. Yeah.
Usted al iniciar este proyecto se encontró con oposición. Otras personas que estuvieron viendo que estaba usted haciendo las entrevistas no le dieron, o sea, autoridades no le dieron problemas. Y otra, ¿alguna vez se sintió usted en peligro al estar haciendo todo esto?
So the question is whether he encountered any danger, and also whether he encountered opposition for people who were offended by the fact that he was doing this project.
Sí, en mi caso, con ninguna persona de las autoridades tuve problema porque, bueno, iba normal a platicar solamente con ellos, y en algunos casos, en lo que respecta al peligro, pues sí sentía un poco de miedo de parte de los migrantes, porque pues usted sabe, caminan, viajan en tren, en raites, no se han bañado, tienen la ropa sucia, el aspecto pues es fuerte de su rostro que dice, quiero llegar a algún lado para que me den agua, tomar agua o comer, porque sí, y su aspecto no es tan, en algunas ocasiones no es muy alegre, no están contentos. Mas, sin embargo, cuando me presentaba con ellos, pues tomaba una actitud normal y empezaba a platicar amistosamente. Llegábamos a intercambiar la ropa, les daba algo de dinero, y ya con eso pues se sentían ellos a gusto y seguían su camino, ¿no?
So he didn't have any run-ins with the police or anything like that, and people were pretty much friendly, and I was working on the technology, so I was, but no big problems.
No, con las autoridades.
And the people that you were interviewing were all very friendly, and he said that they were tired, unwashed, they hadn't bathed in a long time, and they were tired.
Duermen en el piso, en las piedras, en la tierra, entonces no hay manera de tener una cama cómoda, ¿no? Entonces, pues imagínate, ese sentimiento de día a día, estar con esa experiencia, pues no es agradable, ¿no? Pero se portaron muy bien todos.
Pero había algunos que no querían hablar contigo.
Que no querían
Ajá.
comentar nada. Llegaban otros y los entrevistaban, llegaban a la media hora, llegaba otro o dos, y así seguía creciendo las entrevistas día a día, ¿no?
Some people did not want to talk to him because they were just plain tired, but then a lot of them, pero sí había otros que sí querían platicar, que se sentían animados.
Sí, había de todo, como en todos lados hay de todo.
Are there other questions in the room? Sí, señor. Laura? Oh, sí. Ella es la mamá de mi estudiante.
Mucho gusto. Encantada de conocerlo.
Igualmente.
Mi pregunta es, ¿cuál es su propósito y hasta dónde usted quiere que llegue este proyecto? Porque es un proyecto que toca mucho. Y a usted personalmente, ¿qué es la historia o la situación que lo ha tocado mucho más?
So the question is, this is a project that is really touches home for a lot of people here today and elsewhere. And so what is your goal and where do you see this going from here?
Bueno, que las cajas o los portafolios que hice de este proyecto no se queden en mi casa, ¿no? Que sigan circulando. Todavía hay como 5 más libres, listos para presentarse en otros lugares. Y bueno, uno como artista pues tiene que seguir produciendo más obra. Como ustedes vieron, a la par de este salió el de Bosquejos del Otro Lado. También ahorita pues ya llevo en la mente otras ideas para producir más cosas. O sea, no me detengo, sino que sigue el proceso creativo, ¿no? Y bueno, vamos a ver hasta dónde llega, ¿no?
So we'll see where it goes. So Bosquejos del Otro Lado era el portafolio gris que enseñamos. So that one that was a portfolio that had 20 sketches in it, he referred to that also. So as an artist, he doesn't stop going. So he's looking forward to new projects, but that's kind of where we come in, because here we have like Himanshi and Fatima and Sonia and other people who we're studying it, so we can look backwards and also be concerned about preserving these and things like that. So as scholars, nuestro trabajo como maestros, por ejemplo, es conservar estos. Entonces, él como artista sigue adelante y nosotros nos preocupamos por exhibir. And so he doesn't want to have these just sitting in his house. There are still 5 more boxes. So I met him less than a year ago, and he's already through me distributed 3 boxes that are going to different places. So 1 to Guatemala, 1 to Washington, D.C., and 1 staying here. And then there's 1 in Stanford, and then he has 5 more. ¿Y dónde está la otra?
Para mis récords.
Okay, so he's keeping 1, right? So he keeps 1, but the other 9 he wants circulating. He doesn't want to have these 10 boxes sitting in his house. I'm más Sandra.
Muchísimas gracias por el proyecto, es increíble. Obviamente, yo vine indocumentada, sí me toca también, pero...
En los años 70.
Sí, ya estoy mayor de edad. Pero una pregunta que yo tengo es, yo quisiera que estas voces y estas historias se pudieran llegar más a la comunidad también. Desafortunadamente, no mucha gente en la comunidad aquí en Albuquerque supimos de este evento. Entonces, ¿en qué forma nosotros pudiéramos... A mí me gustaría ver cuáles serían las reacciones de los políticos cuando escuchan estas historias. ¿Cuáles serían? ¿Cómo actuarían ellos al ver que estos humanos son gente humana, son historias de personas humanas? A mí me gustaría ver que estas voces y estas historias se pudieran, no sé, llevarlas a un lugar más lejos todavía de guardarlas acá o de exhibirlas nada más en la universidad. Los estudiantes deberían de saber todo esto en las escuelas, en las fronteras, cómo están respondiendo. Son historias, y están sucediendo constantemente. Entonces digo, ¿qué hacemos? ¿Cómo podemos responder a todo esto?
So how can these get out into the community, since the university is somewhat isolated from the community? Getting this into the schools, how would politicians react when they see these things? One of the things, Sandra, when he comes back in October, we are going to do some K through 12 outreach. So, pero ¿cómo reaccionarían los políticos, por ejemplo?
Bueno, en lo que a mí me toca, pues en cuanto a mi experiencia personal, pues aquí en este momento hubo un grupo de 45 personas, los cuales pues ya conocieron el proyecto, que bueno, ya se crearon una propia reflexión, se lo llevan a su casa y para mí eso es importante, ¿no? Aunque sea un grano de arena, es importante, ¿no? De un lugar a otro, ¿no? Yo sé que hablar de una macro difusión, pues en este momento es difícil, quizás más adelante, pero por lo pronto, con este grupo de personas que estuvimos aquí, me siento muy bien, me doy por servir.
Por ejemplo, todo este proyecto está en Facebook también, ¿verdad?
Está en Facebook, sí.
¿En todas esas historias?
Sí.
Porque sería interesante cómo responder a algunas de esas historias mundialmente.
digamos, si están todas esas historias, contestarle. A mí me gustaría contestar algunas de esas cosas.
Okay.
Que se pudiera decir esto y que a lo mejor estos individuos que están, ojalá que estén vivos o que estén bien,
Sí,
que pudieran ver su historia y decir, oh, ok, mi historia tocó a alguien, no sé, de alguna forma, cómo tirarlo a más allá.
So Sandra migrated here undocumented in the 1970s, and she even had to pretend to be Puerto Rican to nobody's gonna follow up on that for now, but Sandra has just been accepted to our master's program. So you are one of the people who can make these changes. And there were about 100 people here altogether, because there were about 30 online and about 70 in person. So Alejandra tiene una pregunta.
Sí, era en la misma línea de Sandra. Si algunos de estos migrantes, es difícil, me imagino, mantener contacto con ellos, pero pienso que Facebook es la plataforma que más usan los migrantes para conectarse con sus países, y sería muy bueno dar la difusión solo ahí, y tal vez decir, bueno, si o sea, usted lo entrevista en algún momento, un señor ahí que le tomó fotos, vaya y búsquese, ¿verdad? Porque así también es importante que quienes puedan, inclusive sus familiares, puedan regresar y ver estas imágenes. Yo estoy de acuerdo, es importante devolverle a que quien los pueda ver tenga acceso a ellas, porque son muy hermosas.
Y el tema que escogimos para hoy era humanizando al migrante. Entonces, giving them a face, giving them a voice, help facilitating them to express themselves. And Rich had a question in the, ¿y qué dijiste de plataformas de?
Que Facebook es la plataforma de redes sociales que se utiliza más en la comunicación entre migrantes en Centroamérica, y me imagino que México también es la que es más activa.
Alejandro was saying that Facebook is the main means of communication between migrants and their families. So getting messages back. And so social media in general, and WhatsApp, and probably Instagram and Snapchat.
It would be great if like a student put up like a little presentation that can be divulged on Facebook, and just say, hey, like, if you were ever interviewed by someone, here's the presentation. De una manera de que llegue, de que se salga afuera, y es súper sencillo hacerlo con una foto, y la gente pueda llegar.
So Alejandra's idea is for students to post this on Facebook and to get more interest, that is the answer to cómo diseminarlo, how to, spread the word. And Rich had asked, he's coming to your class this afternoon, and he will have some copies of this book with him that does have the 100 in them. But this summer, Fatima and I are hopefully going to be working on getting a book. This just has an introduction and just the actual silhouettes, but we are working on a book. In fact, the grant from the seed grant from the Alfonso Ortiz Center for Intercultural Studies is going to help us to publish a book that has the text and the images. Miguel.
Es obvio el trabajo que haces de low tech, ¿no? De baja tecnología. Me parece muy interesante, porque si algo genera alta tecnología, por lo menos en este país, es la inseguridad contra la migración. O sea, no tenemos que ir muy lejos. Si vamos solo a Ciudad Juárez o a Las Cruces, nos vemos cruzados literalmente por rayos que nos están penetrando para saber quiénes somos, de dónde venimos y cuál es nuestro coeficiente intelectual y si pagamos taxes, ¿no? Pero una cosa que me interesa mucho es esta respuesta de parte tuya de mostrar el trabajo y todo el trabajo que cuesta hacer, recabar y tener estas siluetas, ¿no? Yo estaba pensando en varios proyectos. Una de las primeras cosas es, si tenemos K-12, es que los chavos, los niños, se metan a manejar estos elementos para que vean cómo se expresa. Es una forma muy hermosa de pasar el tiempo, incluso de terapia, porque puedes parecer estar trabajando muchas cosas con el trabajo manual. Lamentablemente estamos tan metidos en las computadoras que nos hemos olvidado de la manualidad y de la materialidad del trabajo. Es muy importante, ¿no? Nos reconvierte a ser humanos. Este es un apartado, ¿no? Y segundo es, todos estos, yo ayer estuve en el desayunando y viste cómo me enojo porque sencillamente a mí no me gustan los elefantes blancos. Los elefantes blancos los llamamos en México, son mega museos that they have, you know, these big institutes, you know, big buildings that are empty and they have one exposition every 5 years. In my town, en la Universidad de Guadalajara, somos pocos pero locos, but el museo ¿cómo se llama? El Hospicio Cabañas tiene obras muy importantes, but the most important aspect is the humanity and the community that the people are there in laboratories, in workshops, music, painting, everything. Why? Because the community needs it, and we're artistic by nature.
So Miguel's question has to do.
So I was thinking about it, you know. How do we connect it back to the migrant community? We cannot go to any community. But these museums, for example, the Mexican Museum, the museums in Central America, they can have digital copies of this, digital recordings and everything this. So these actual things are evidence of people that cross the border and maybe are lost forever. Okay, so this is evidence of that. Pasó por aquí. What do we know? We don't know. But this is very important thing to bring about.
So Miguel brought up the point of, and Miguel is one of the people I wanted to thank also because he postponed his trip. He was supposed to go from Dallas to a conference today, and he is going today. He was supposed to leave in the morning, and he changed his flight to the afternoon. And I'm glad because one of our children did need to be picked up from school early because she was sick. And so right when we were in the middle of the installation. So Miguel's question has to do with the baja tecnología, so low tech, and children in schools, for example, being able to touch things, and the use of low technology when everything's high tech.
Sí, yo pienso también que coincido contigo, Miguel, y creo que en esos espacios elefantes blancos podría haber una serie de talleres especialmente dedicados pues a los niños para que vayan, por ejemplo, el contacto con la pulpa del papel y hagan sus propias hojas, vean cómo se hace. Eso creo que es importante sería importante para su formación y el futuro, ¿no? de su educación, ¿no? No solamente eso, talleres que si hubiera más movimiento de talleres, ¿no? Para pintura, de dibujo, no sé, danza o algo de teatro, ¿no?
When one of the things we do here is take arts out of the schools. And Sandra, for example, for 12 years ran a after-school program that had dance and art and all the things that the budget cuts. That's the first thing they cut is art. So, but touching things, kids learned how to text, but they don't touch cotton pulp. They don't, no. Otras preguntas? There's nothing online. People have to leave, but the plan for the rest of it was we were going to play the audio. We were thinking of turning off the lights in here, turning on the audio, and then we're going to the other room. There's part of the exhibition in there and also food. And thanks to those who came online, and we will be recording this and I will send out the PowerPoint. Thank you for coming. Wait, one more question. Laura Steele, who's in Argentina. ¿Qué le motivó a hacer este trabajo?
Ligar el arte y la sociedad, o sea, hacer una unidad entre las cuestiones sociales y lo artístico.
So, and also Stephanie had asked that from Peru and Laura in Argentina, and you can also write to him. So his email is, I'm going to share my screen again and see if we can find that. There it is. There's his email. I'll leave that up for a few seconds and then we will end. So gracias por venir.
¿Alguna historia? ¿De dónde vienes? ¿A
No,
dónde
pues
vas?
venimos de Honduras y toda la travesía que uno camina es difícil. Cuando suben el tren, lo asaltan, muchos secuestradores abajo. El camino es bien difícil, todo lo que uno sufre ahí.
¿Por qué te viniste?
Por necesidad, situación económica en Honduras. No hay ni trabajo en Honduras. Está difícil la vida.
Ay, ¿qué dice?
Pues pregúnteme.
Pues, ¿de dónde vienes? ¿A dónde vas? ¿Qué...
No, venimos de Honduras y vamos para el norte, para arriba, y la vida está dura en Honduras. Y venimos luchando ahí, días caminando, días en el tren, días que bebe agua uno, días que no bebe, come. Hay veces que le toca dormir hasta en el monte a uno. Y cómo, pues hay que luchar y seguirle para arriba.
Ok, va. Ahí va.
¿Por qué me vine? Por el sueño americano, de Honduras. Sí, pues se sufre no andar en la vista, y la verdad pues no. También a veces hemos perdido a compañeros, pero aún así le seguimos, le seguimos con nuestra gente, hasta llegar a nuestro destino, lo que es la frontera. Sí, eso es todo. Yo tengo que decir.
Ahí está. Corriendo.
Vaya, pues vengo de Honduras y pues recorrimos Guatemala, Tenosique, Palenque, Tierra Blanca, Orizaba, Córdoba, y pues los tratamos en el tren pues para Pisaco, y luego pues en Bogotá estuvimos en la casa de migrantes. Pues hemos viajado en las cajas de migrantes y luego los venimos para Celaya, pues aquí estamos en Celaya, también nos fuimos a la caja de migrantes, pues ya vamos en el tren, ya los vamos, ya entonces pues por eso le damos una entrevista al jefe pues para que diga que él pues ayuda a los inmigrantes, y pues aquí estamos nosotros, pues nos va a ayudar ahí en algo. Vaya.
No, pues yo me fue bien ahí en la bestia, ahí venía, que bebiendo agua por rato sin comer, pero ahí veníamos, ¿me entiendes? Echándole ganas, porque la vida sí es echarle ganas para arriba, y nosotros pues lo que tenemos que hacer es seguir adelante, no agüitarnos por nada, porque así es la vida. En este camino es que le toca a veces sufrir a uno para poder salir adelante. Y pues lastimosamente ahí lo bajan a uno y lo vuelven a subir, pero ahí venimos para arriba siempre, como así es la vida del inmigrante en este camino, tiene que seguir adelante.
Pues para mí ha sido muy duro este camino, por cuarta vez. Ha sufrido muchos de los policías lo bajan a uno del tren, parece que son de ellos, y uno pues sufre hambre, sueño, sed, y sabiendo que deja a la familia botada por salir adelante. Así que así a mí, mis amigos inmigrantes, les animamos que sigamos adelante, siempre poniendo la mirada en Cristo Jesús, que es el que los guía aquí, los guarda. Así pues, mucho gusto.
No, pues a nosotros pues, nos ha tocado duro el camino, saliendo de nuestro país, entrando a México nos asaltan, y subir sin ni un peso está duro en este camino, sufriendo hambre, sed y todo en este tren. Los mismos federales nos roban, los policías de aquí son corruptos y a ley no tienen que, lo sacan dinero, sin saber que uno para ganar ese dinero tiene que pedir en la calle, sin darse cuenta ellos los maltratos que le dan a uno, y pues ahí vamos para adelante, sufriendo, pero vamos con todo.
Ya le traje 10 pesos más para mí.
No, pues nosotros aquí el camino ha sido muy duro, porque a veces aguantamos hambre, caminamos mucho y tenemos sed. A veces cuando salimos de Honduras solo entrando a Guatemala los roban, nos quitan todo, y aquí venimos sin ningún centavo, sin nada. Pues cómo así es el camino, y a veces que venimos en el tren los bajan o los golpean los mismos policías, los garroteros, y por eso nos toca caminar mucho y aguantamos hambre, sed y de todo. Y en nuestro país también salimos por falta de trabajo y de todo, porque no hay nada. Pero como, así es la vida, pero gracias a Dios vamos así para arriba, y primeramente Dios vamos a llegar a nuestro destino, porque primeramente Dios es el que nos guarda y nos cuida en este camino, porque en este camino solo es Él y nadie más.